any organization, planning is the first managerial function. Managerial planning helps an organization to decide where it wants to be in future and how to get there. With this brief background, I would like to start this lecture on planning. The contents of the lecture include the introduction of the concept, definition of planning, what are the objectives of planning, what is the process of planning, and in this we are going to study what are the planning premises, which is very crucial step in planning. Then we are going to study what are the different characteristics of planning, followed by these are also the characteristics of planning, for example primacy of planning, rational approach, and pervasiveness. Then we'll talk about hierarchies of planning and also the types of plan, followed by the references. So let's begin with the background of the concept. We'll begin with thinking before doing. It is an act of planning. Thinking actually helps in people to anticipate the likely impact of any future events, and also prepare them with necessary course of action. In any organization, planning is the first managerial function. Managerial planning helps an organization to decide where it wants to be in future and how to get there. The two questions are being answered, where and how. So being the primary and the basic managerial function, there are other managerial functions which are also dependent on planning. Let's take an example of control function. In management, control functions extremely becomes meaningless if there is no planning. Though through planning, organization decide what is to be done to achieve some decided goals, and by enforcing control, one can ascertain whether everything is okay and done properly to meet the goals or not. The next is guidance and the motivation people receive in order to achieve their goals because of planning. And also there is a sense of direction, people are able to achieve their goals along with the organizational goals. So this is the background about planning. Let's talk about the definition of planning. Planning has many definitions. We'll begin with Henry Fayol. According to Henry Fayol, planning means both to assess the future and make provision for it. The second one is my favorite, which I always use in order to teach my students what do we mean by planning. So it is the process of deciding in advance what to do, how to do, when to do, and who is to do it. So 4 questions are being answered when you are talking about planning. Number 1, what? Number 2, how? Number 3, when? Number 4, who? This definition is given by Kuntz and O'Donnell. Then the third definition talks about it's an act of determining the organization's goal and the means for achieving them. This is also one definition which is widely used by many people. So let's begin with the objectives. What are the objectives of planning? Number 1, it minimizes the future risk and uncertainty. Like when we don't have planning, the risks and for the uncertainty are higher. Second one is it brings planning. If we are going for planning, it brings the cooperation and coordination in all the activities of the organization. When we are planning, it reduces the cost as well, and it also helps in anticipating the futuristic trends, and we are ready in a better way for the future. And also we are able to achieve predefined goals in a better way when we are going for planning. So these are the objectives of planning. Now let's talk about what is the process of planning, how we get this done. We'll begin with setting the objectives, which are specific and measurable and result oriented. The second step of planning is developing the planning premises. The third one is identifying the alternative course of action, followed by evaluating these course of action and selecting the one best course of action. In these 3 steps we are talking about course of action. Okay. So first one is identifying, the second one is evaluating, the third one is selecting. The next step is implementing the plan and also the follow-up action. So these are all the steps of planning. Each one of them is discussed in the upcoming slides. Let's begin with the first step, which is setting the objectives. This is the primary step in the process of planning, which specifies the objective of an organization, that is what an organization wants to achieve. The planning process begins with the setting an objective, and also they are the end results which management wants to achieve by its operations. Objectives are specific and also measurable in terms of unit, and also objectives are set for the organization as a whole for all departments, and then departments set their own specific objectives within the framework of the organizational objectives. So first, the whole objectives are set for the whole departments, and then departments are setting for their own objectives, and also under the framework of the organizational settings. Let's take an example of a mobile company which is going for an objective of selling 2 lakh units next year, which is the double of the current sales. So this is the first step, which is setting the measurable result oriented objective. The second step in the process of planning is developing the planning premises. Planning premises are the assumptions about the environment in which the plan is to be carried out. So planning is essentially focused on future, and there are uncertain events which are expected to affect the policy formation, and they are primarily external in nature. So their understanding and fair assessment are necessary for effective planning. Such events are the assumptions on the basis of which plans are drawn and are known as a planning premises. So let's take the example of the mobile phone company, which has set the objective of selling 2 lakh units sale on the basis of the forecast done on the premises of favorable government policies toward digitalization of the transactions. So I would like to give an example of Indian government, where the demonetization policy in India had a significant demonetization policy in India had a significant impact on the country's economy, but it also accelerated the growth of the digital payments in India. With government's mission in of target of 2,500 crore digital transactions in 2017 to 18 union budget through UPI, USSD, Aadhaar Pay, IMPS and debit cards, it reduced the dependence on cash transactions. By Aadhaar card, it allows the merchant to accept the payments from a customer of any bank. Then if you talk about USSD, it allows users with a without a smartphone or data or internet connection to use mobile banking. Now let's talk about the planning premises types. So there are various types. Number one, let's talk about the internal. Internal means which are inside the company. For example, men, money, material and methods. Then also the present workforce competence, and also the financial limitations such as budget. The external would be which are not confined to the boundaries of the organization. For example, market premises, then government policies. Like in previous slide, I talked about the demonetization, which supported the digitalization and the growth in the using smartphones by the people, and then what are the trends in the population. Then let's talk about the tangible premises. Tangible premises are basically those premises which are quantitatively measured, like time, money, units of production. They are tangible premises. Now let's talk about what are intangible premises. Intangible premises are those premises which are not measured quantitatively. So for example, the reputation of any business or public relations or the employer branding. Employer branding. Next is controllable premises, which are material, machines and money. They are semi-controllable premises as well, which are controllable to up to some extent. For example, the relationships with the trade unions and also the demand of the product. The third one is non-controllable, like no matter what, but there are certain things which cannot be controlled by humans. For example, weather conditions and also natural disasters. For example, COVID-19 was a non-controllable premises. So let's continue with the planning premises. This is the third step in planning. So this is it says identifying the alternative courses of action. Once the objectives are set, assumptions are made, then the next step is to act upon them. So there may be very many ways to act and achieve objectives. All the alternative courses of action should be identified. For example, in order to sell 2 lakh units of mobile phones, the mobile company has many alternatives. For example, they can achieve it by reducing the price, increasing the advertising and promotion, and also the after sales services. Then the fourth step is evaluating the alternative course of action. In this step, the positive and the negative aspects of each alternative need to be evaluated in the light of objectives to be achieved. So every alternative would be evaluated in terms of lower cost, lower risk, lower cost, lower risk, and higher returns within the planning premises and within the availability of the capital. So let's take an example. The mobile company will evaluate all the alternatives and check their pros and cons. Pros and cons. Then selecting the best alternative. It means the best plan which is the most profitable with minimum negative effects. So we are talking about the maximum gain and minimum negative effect is the adopted and implemented in the followed plan. So in such cases, managers' experience, judgment play an important role in the selecting the best alternative. For example, mobile company selects more TV advertisements and online marketing with great after sales services. The next step is implementation of the plan, which is a very crucial step. This step is concerned with doing what is required finally. So in this step, managers communicate the plan to the employees clearly to help convert the plans into the action. So we have the plan on paper, but without the help of the manpower, we cannot implement that. So we need to communicate. So this step involves allocating the resources for final implementation, organizing for labor, and also the purchase of the machinery if required. For example, mobile phone company hires salesmen on a large scale in order to launch the product, creates TV advertisements with the help of marketing team, and starts online marketing activities and set up the service workshops. Very crucial step is the last step, and the final step is follow-up action. So it requires the monitoring the plan constantly and taking feedback at regular intervals. It also ensures that plans are being implemented according to the schedule, and the regular checks and comparison of the results with the set standards are done to ensure that objectives are achieved or not. So a proper feedback mechanism should be developed by the mobile company throughout its branches, and that are actual, so that the actual customer response, see, I'm talking about actual, not the created one, actual customer response and revenue collection, employee response, etc. could be known. Now let's talk about the characteristics of planning. So we'll begin with, it is an open system approach. For example, Starbucks adopts its menu based on the local taste when entering a new international markets. The second characteristic is focus on objectives, what, when, and how. So Apple sets a goal to launch a new iPhone model, what, by September, when, by design, production, and marketing terms. This is how. Sorry, teams. Then the decision making. Google decides to invest more in AI development rather than expanding its hardware division to analyzing future trends. Then forward looking. Tesla plans to build more gigafactories to meet the future demand for electric vehicle globally. Then continuous process. For example, there is Amazon which constantly adjusts its delivery strategies to improve the speed and customer satisfaction. Then let's talk about the flexibility. The example of flexibility could be Nike. It quickly shifts the production to manufacture face masks during the COVID-19 pandemic. Then mental exercise. When we talk about mental exercise, Netflix strategizes how to expand its, into new regions, considering local competition, regulations, and content preferences. Then let's talk about the primacy of planning. Like for any company like Coca-Cola, before launching a new product, Coca-Cola carefully plans its, marketing campaign, supply chain, and distribution strategy. Then rational approach. Let's take the example of Walmart, how it uses analytics to decide which product line to expand based on the sales trend and customer feedback. Then let's talk about lastly pervasiveness. For example, Microsoft planning involves everyone from top to new software to like operation plans for the customer service improvements. So these are the characteristics of let's study this characteristic of planning in detail. Primacy of planning. So planning is a foundational activity in management, and planning sets the direction for an organization by determining its goal, what the organization wants to achieve, and the path to reach those goals and how to achieve them. Fine. So when we talk about, like we discussed before, launching a new product, Coca-Cola carefully plans its marketing campaign, supply chain, and distribution strategy. So it's a first activity. So when we talk about primacy of planning, it begins with what kind of organizational structure. Planning helps in deciding the type of organizational structure the organization needs. For example, should it be hierarchical? Should it be hierarchical? Should it be flat, or should it be matrix? The structure will support the achievement of the organization's objectives. So on the basis of that, it answers what kind of people are required in the organization. Once the organizational structure is decided, then we are going to talk about what kind of people are required. So planning determines the workforce needs to fulfill, needed to fulfill the organizational goals, such as the required skills, knowledge, and the how many people, like the number of employees. So we are talking about three things. We are talking about the skills, knowledge, and also how many people are required. Three things are there. So which actually affects the kind of direction, which direction we should go, like how effectively to lead the people. Like people include strategies for leadership and management, ensuring that the workforce is motivated and aligned with the organization's objective. In order to assure success, plans, so we'll go with planning sets the performance standards, making it easier to measure the progress and control deviations from the plan. It helps in ensuring the plan, like ensuring the organization stays on the right course of action and it is not deviated. So this is why the planning is considered to be the prime function in any organization, because it helps in determining the kind of structure we are going to use. On the basis of structure, we are going for what kind of people do we need, and how to lead them, and how to achieve the results. Let's talk about the second characteristic, that is rational approach. As you can see in this image, there are current status. This is the status bar and this is the time. So from this time to this time, how to reach, planning helps in rationally reaching from the current state to the desired state, and on the basis of time. And if we are not able to achieve that, it is going to tell us, like for example, we had the target of setting the 2 lakh selling the 2 lakh units of phone, but somehow we are able to sell only by time to the set time, the deadline, we are able to set only 1 lakh. So this is the gap. So this much is the is the delay in the goal. Now let's talk about the third uh, characteristic in detail, which is called pervasiveness. So as we all know that planning is effective on all levels. So when we talk about corporate or organization level, it's like organization wide. When we talk about division level, it's like operation division of a manufacturing company plan to develop a strategic plan to enhance production efficiency. When we talk about the departmental plan, we talk about creating a promotional strategy for the new product line. And when we talk about the sectional plan, it is like the customer acquisition strategy for a new region. Now let's talk about the hierarchies of planning. So we'll begin with the vision. So for example, an institution with a vision for women empowerment. Then we'll go to mission. For example, the higher education of women through a university. On the basis of vision and mission, the objective would be, for example, to give a scholarship to the 20% of the meritorious women from deprived section of the society. And number 2, helping women to learn and practice value. So which strategies would be used? For example, providing low cost value oriented higher education to women in contrast to other educational institutions. Means other institutions are not providing like the same education in the so low with so low fees, but this institution is providing. So on the basis of that, for implementation we have operational plans. For example, laying down the procedure for admission of students and also laying the rules for conducting examinations. So there are like 3 categories of operation plans. Number 1, for repetitive activities, we have standing plans like procedures, policies and methods and rules. For non-repetitive activities, we have single-use plans, programs and budgets. For customers and investors, we have business plans. So this is the hierarchy of planning. What are the types of plan? So I'm giving you one example about each. Let's talk about first we'll begin with the program plans. For example, making an employee absent if he or she fails to report till 9 a.m. on the working day. So this is already programmed. Then let's talk about what is non-programmed. Employee arrived on time in premises but met with an accident. Absent or should he be marked absent or present? This is a contingency approach. So on the basis of situation, we can take decision. Then major plans. So for example, buy a new plant. Minor, to renew a subscription of the magazine. Then routine, which are there in the routines, maintenance of the machine. Strategic, for example, replacement of machines, which includes, why I am calling it strategic replacement of machine, because we are saying tata bye bye to the old machines and you are installing new machines, which requires a huge investment and also the training of employees. So it has to be the strategic, like if when you are sure about the future trends, then only you are going for this big decision. Then let's talk about the sequential. For example, pay increments, promotion on successive performance. Then we'll talk about bear by the tail, like decision to launch a sales promotion, which is a critical step in any business. Now let's talk about the individual plans. Means decision to post the security guard on a new floor. Then the group decisions, for example, to lay off or to stop selling a new product. Then we'll talk about the simple plans, selecting the newspaper subscription, like which newspaper which we should subscribe. Then the complex one would be the decision to appoint a new head or manager. Then heuristic plan would be the decision to cut the advertising cost during the recession. And intuitive plan would be decision to trust and receive materials from a new supplier. So on the basis of intuition, we don't have any previous experience or data to support our decision, but yes, intuition is very strong. That's why we are going with the new supplier. This is the list of references which I've used in order to make this lecture on first function of manager, that is planning. Take the screenshot. You can take the screenshot and use the same references for gaining more insights on the topic. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked this lecture and this lecture is going to be beneficial for your studies. Have a nice day. All the best for your career. Thank you so much.